But in a situation where you find that you look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and it's time for newspaper reviews. And as is the tradition, we would begin with the Daily Trust. By the way, the Daily Trust is celebrating 25 years of robust journalism in Nigeria. We begin with the major headline, a complete departure from all other papers. Nigeria's airline race to meet 6 aircraft requirements. Get January 2025 deadline in new regulations. Many may fizzle out. An expert calls for merger. You will get the details of that story on page 4. A graphics or infographics analysis of the number of scheduled airlines in Nigeria. You will find it on the front page with Air Peace leading the pack with about 30 aircraft, followed by Aero Contractors with 7. No, not exactly. Followed by Eric Air with 10. But you then have to look at how many of those 10 is actually serviceable aircraft. And then, of course, Aero Contractors and Max Air in the 7 region. We also have Dana Air with 8. About less than 6 of them are currently operating, but it has embarked on an expansion plan.
Viable aviation sector, but the indices doesn't look like...
It doesn't look it.
Say for Air Peace, for instance, the domestic... aviation sector would be a mess. I mean, imagine how limited the flights would be.
Take out this 30 and we're in a complete mess. And clearly, if you look at the likes of Rano, Value Jets, United Nigeria, Ibom Air, there's no reason why all of this cannot be one, basically. And all of these aircraft are not up to a single carrier in Ethiopia.
You talk about too big to succeed. There's also too small too small to survive, and this is the case. Absolutely. Because we talk about standardization. I know we're going to break it down a little later, but it just doesn't make sense for you to have just 3 aircrafts and then call yourself a major airline operating in a country like Nigeria, for instance.
All right, and moving on to other stories. Tinubu picked Balarabe to replace El-Rufai. Balarabe, as you know, is the former chief of staff to Governor El-Rufai, former governor.
I think he was also secretary to the state government.
Reps to prove 15.5 trillion pension asset and to recover 10 trillion from FG. This is a tricky story because what they call loans to the FG is actually the PFA's federal government bonds. Subscription to federal government, but these are not loans, these are bonds bound by sovereign guarantees. We don't know whether the reps understand it that way. Whatever they want to recover, let's see how it goes. And birthday mismatch, gender error, unanswered questions as Chicago Varsity releases Tinubu's certificates.
As I was saying yesterday, I think at this point the situation is still inconclusive.
That's right.
You don't know what this signposts.
That's right.
Does this mean there was forgery? Does this mean discrepancies?
And 23 traders fared death in Kebbi boat accident. I'm not sure how to situate this, considering that these persons, took off from Niger. One incident too many. Tribunal victory, divine intervention, Nasara PDP chairman. Police arrest Naira Marley over Mohbad's death. This issue just won't go away. And Dunamis pastor killed in Benue church collapse.
Very
these are the
unfortunate.
major stories, on the front page of the Daily Trust.
The Nation newspaper is up next. Let's take a look at the front page of the Nation newspaper for today. Senate bars new members from top positions. Now rules OK. New rules, rather, OK's ranking. And this is the common practice, especially in other clans, isn't it? That you have ranking members in the Senate. And for some people, they are trying to curtail the whole impeachment saga around Godswill Akpabio. But need I say that you've just incentivized it for ranking members to now recruit new members of the Senate to now say, listen, let's band it together and put someone who is, a ranking member in that position. So. But anyway, they have revised their standing order now in the Nigerian Senate. Diphtheria, FCT, 18 states may bring back face mask use. UK, US to partner federal government on marine blue economy. Balarabe, Bayo, Ibrahim, Olawale for ministerial screening, as the president sent in that name yesterday, asking for expedited action from the Nigerian Senate.
Wondering though, what ministries are there that have not been filled up?
At this point, it's just you know, filling in those political you know, positions, and that's all. Because I think he has the team that he needs. These are just excesses that I think the president thinks that it's acceptable. Mohbad, police detain Naira Marley. U.S. Speaker McCarthy removed. I never saw this coming. I mean, after it happened, it made sense because he was unpopular anyway, even before he got elected. Remember the back and forth where he couldn't get the majority. President Trump had to weigh in. He had people like Matt Gaetz and others who are, you know, saying that, you know, he's not the right person. But eventually, after signing that, that rescue bill to keep the government open, I think a lot of Republicans felt this guy is trying to save Biden, and all they're trying to do is demarcate the Biden administration. A shutdown will definitely hurt Biden, you know, in the forthcoming election. But it's bye-bye to McCarthy as Speaker of the United States, you know, House of Representatives. The big story is talking about the agreement between organized labor and the federal government. It says agreement with organized labor to cost the federal government 2 trillion naira. 89,100 workers likely to miss 35,000 wage award. How VAT cut on diesel will affect the economy. Are we some of the 89,000 that will miss out on that?
I'm not sure we're ever part of any palliative budget, so there's nothing to miss, you know.
Well, there's definitely something to miss. We're never in the mix, but yeah, we're missing out on something. Tinubu certificate in order. CSU deposes in court. Our former student, now Nigeria's president. Of course, the Nation newspaper, you can understand why they take this more positive position on this one. But of course, it is a matter of fact that the registrar of the California State, Chicago State University registrar, under oath, confirmed that the president, you know, graduated from that university. And you know, if you lie under oath in the United States, you're not just lying. If they find out you're lying, you're going to prison.
Straight up.
And I don't know why the registrar will stick his neck if, you know, that's not true. So that's why the whole situation is confusing. But that's it on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
All right, we move on to the Guardian next, and it's a different kind of story on the front page. Hurdles for FG 2024's budget, over 10 trillion deficit and palliatives. You want to look up that story on page 6. And then we have pictorial or graphic representation of that story there, showing the 2022 FGN budget implementation report with expenditure golfing 810 billion. And we have another 5.6 trillion debt service, 5.3 trillion total FGN revenue. So it's as good as your total revenue going into debt service. And then of course we have this 1.67 trillion total receipts from independent revenue, 14.3 trillion total expenditure. It's the mismatch is just mind-boggling. I
think infographics as you know, headline news are the ways to go. I mean, you look at the Daily Trust newspaper, you look at the Guardian. It gives you a clear picture, doesn't it? Yeah. Than just, you know, putting it in words.
Yeah. And moving on to other stories, Tinubu nominate Balarabe to replace Erufai, 2 others. And greener pastures, tackling mass exodus on Zazad Mediterranean routes. It's a news analysis on page 4. Shaibu Perugi dissects Tinubu Chicago documents. I'm sure that will be an interesting...
Made 6 points. He talked about the non-partisan. I think people interested in a non-partisan outlook should look at people like that. I think Farouk Perugi did a good job in, you know, capturing him. I think he made 6 points where the argument supports both sides of the argument about some of these discrepancies, what might likely happen. I mean, obviously he did share some of his opinions, but I think it's a more complete outlook on that whole situation.
All right, and that's the much we can take from the Guardian this morning.
And finally, the Business Day newspaper, as we wrap things up on the newspaper review this morning. Nigerians return to 2G devices as economy bites. Okay. This is very interesting. Wonder what this is all about. The story continues on page 2. 2G? When was the last time? Okay. I hope this is not just an exaggeration, but I haven't seen 2G in a very long time. But anyway, the business day must have a perspective that is worth taking a look at. Nigeria hurts FDI with Africa's highest work visa fee. And stocks rally ahead of third quarter earnings season. Tinubu submitted forged documents to INEC according to Atiku's aide, and Nigeria's economic reforms need to regain freedom according to the Financial Times. And you have the picture of the president flanked by Colby, who is the executive vice president communications at IHS Towers, alongside Ayodele Onyola, the executive vice president and chief human resource of IHS Towers, at a private session on the side event hosted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce during the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. So this was a couple of
days ago.
Days old, actually.
To say,
yeah,
that General Assembly, especially the sideline events, had so much packed for the president.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, and that's the much we would bring from the newspaper review this morning. We are now joined in the studio to help us make sense of some of this headline. The former director of news of the Voice of Nigeria, Mr. Benjamin. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Mr. Ben, good morning.
Happy Independence.
Today you're not resting on the couch. You're standing straight. You're ready to go, I guess.
I'm wearing the Nigerian.
Oh, the lapel. Yeah.
Yes, we are ready to move.
Yeah.
We are the youth.
I'm not. I'm not sure. Most times I try to understand when senior citizens sort of celebrate this country in a different way. Is it because you saw this country from a different light? The independence, the enthusiasm around the senior citizens and the
it's
kids,
lost on a much younger generation like us. Yeah.
See, let me tell you, if you don't keep hope alive, you just be lying down flat like a cooked spaghetti or something.
I mean, but if you were born into a hopeless situation, how
it's a lot more challenging for you to be hopeful, isn't it?
And you have hit your first cause mark. How long are you supposed to keep this hope alive?
You see, it's like the toddler. You don't remain a toddler forever. You meander, you stand up, you move here, almost falling, you stand, in the end, you are straight and you start moving.
Yeah.
And that is our story. No matter what bad guys would want to do for Nigeria, I tell you, we are going to.
Well, I agree with Mr. Benjamin. I think Sunday's point stands to reason that you guys saw Nigeria when it was, you had the memories of the good old days. We don't have memories of the good old days.
Truly, it was so good to the extent that when I started work as level 8, step 3, my salary was, I won't forget, 424 naira 26 kobo. I still have that pay slip today.
Is it the monthly salary?
That money, that's the entire talking of your housing, your transportation, and any other thing packaged together. And I was able to still take care of my children, pay some rent, and I'll still have something kept in my account. And I want to say that even the very first account I opened when I finished secondary school, 1981. I still maintain that account. That kind of thing. See, it does not mean that there is some kind of huge money in there, but when you remember these things, all you do is to smile. And sometimes don't forget, some old records, when I play them, I see my old father, I see my uncle down in the village. Those things keep me alive. They give me hope. And that Nigeria is one day going to be. I mean, when we had all Fulanis in my father's house, my father gave them, we were one and all. So what happened along this line?
Well, that's a very big question.
One day we'll make it
generations. That same question. We're not sure what happened.
What did you do to the Nigerian? Because the one we're seeing right now is
the new generation came and invented some means of survival.
Why are you
we never heard of Yahoo Yahoo.
We're definitely going in different directions.
So you see, Nigeria one day.
It's safe to say your generation is still in charge of this country, in case you've forgotten.
Well, I won't forget when President Obasanjo visited us in secondary school that time. He was military head of state. He said, look, you guys are the children of tomorrow, leaders of tomorrow. he's still occupying my tomorrow. I'm a grandfather. But all the same, we are going to forgive very many people and we'll move ahead.
Okay.
We cannot be looking behind with regrets.
Okay.
We have to forge ahead.
Okay, we would hang on to that popular prayer by Bishop Kuka, who said, may your yesterday not be better than your tomorrow.
Exactly.
Moving on to the papers this morning, the Daily Trust has helped in painting what appears to be a worrisome picture. There had been this instruction by the NCAA saying that for you to operate in Nigeria, you should have not less than 6 aircraft. That thinking presupposes that if anything happens, you have sufficient aircraft, to recover and not distort people's operation. And going by that guide, we have just 6 carriers who, as it stands today, would be able to remain afloat should this instruction kick in. And as we know, aircraft are not things that you pick off the shelves. You make orders several years ahead, agree on pricing and all of those modifications that need to happen before delivery dates are met. And anything can happen to delivery, anything from a COVID to a recession and all of that. What do you think? What's your sense of where we stand right now with this situation?
Yeah, you see, we cannot. When I say we, I mean Nigeria. Is it proper that a man would just have one aircraft and he said you are in the aviation sector? It's like someone operating one kabu from Nyanya to Bega. You stop everywhere and you insist on that. There was a time in this country when some people say, oh, Nigeria was underbanked. No, it was overbanked. No, it was underbranch, so to speak. They then said, how do we ensure that they have very strong and solid financial basis? And that was why you could see some banks merging to forge together, even foreign banks. Stanbic IBTC is from South Africa. It's a South African bank. They merged with a Nigerian bank and many others like that. So if you go to some other countries, Nigerian banks have also merged to have a solid base. So there is nothing wrong. I don't see it as a misnomer. It's not something that people should worry about. Where you have too many names on the list as airlines, it's different from when you have aircraft on ground. You also have to have joint operations. So where it is necessary and you can do hire purchase, who says you can't do it? But not the one like that was done with the previous administration by Sirika and the rest. We need people who will come in, either they are Ethiopian or they are Kenyan or wherever. Let them come to Nigeria. Let experts. Look, if Onyema is doing very well, why don't some people simply match with him? Okay, let me join you. But the situation where again you see some state governments, you just have some 2 aircraft, you just sign an MOU with some countries, they lease one kind of 2 or 3 aircraft, and you said you're doing this. Check and see what rebates are going in there. Is it really a commercial venture, or you are doing some kind of public relations? So when you're talking of making money from this aviation, let it be. So I think.
But do you get a sense that Nigeria will have the political will to enforce this, especially forcing some of these smaller companies who don't have the capacity to operate on their own to work with other companies to ensure efficiency within the sector? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about effective and efficient service delivery, isn't it?
Yes. Now, you see, when you talk of will they accept, in the estate you live, if some people refuse to pay what they're supposed to be paid, service charges, by the time you reach the gate, the security men are instructed, don't open the gate for them. They must always come, whether it is raining or some punitive measure. If you can do that, now the government has the control over the radar system. If you can't, if they say...
they can revoke their license, operational license, but we're talking about the political will. Do you see the government mustering that political will to go through with this policy? Of
course, it's the same government that brought it. It's not as if some private guys will say, do some mergers, do this, let's join. No, The government is rather bringing it. And for government to have given it a thought, it is everything. And usually that's what you call public policy communications. If you're having a policy like this one, you fly the kite first. Let the Nigerians begin to debate, chew, understand, accept or not accept, so that it gives you a way out. But as it is now, you cannot have just one aircraft. And you said you're operating in the aviation industry in Nigeria. I think that the government can have this will, it should have the will, and it can do it. If it did it in the banking sector, remember the days of the CBN governor. Then,
the recapitalization and then the mergers of...
Just recapitalized and ensure that you have this. And before you are given this license to operate in a bank, you must have this huge amount kept in case you go into some debt. In the same vein, if aviation is coming, by the time, how much is an aeroplane? How much is it to insure? You know, and by the time you look at all of these things, yes, okay, let us march so that we can forge forward. And the government feels they should do it. So they should have the political will.
All right, moving on to other stories, we saw, rather unfortunately, 23 other traders fell dead in cable boat mishap. The details tell us that they took off from Niger, somewhere in Aguara, I think, headed to the other side of the bank when this incident happened. Niger State particularly, one death too many. What is happening to governance on our water space?
I think in this particular case, I saw that they were going, they never had any turbulence. Suddenly, there was waves. There was wave. The wave came and hit them, the thing capsized. So that one, we'll just say natural forces. But the ones where the boat is overloaded, it is old, and you take your sail in the night, you could see that those ones are man-made, so to speak. But all the same, we still have to can we begin to have some navigational aids that will also tell these people that all is not well ahead? Because you could see some cars now, the moment you have wet ground, automatically that's a way they make the tires to grab the ground properly so that it doesn't become slippery. Do we begin to think of this? Some people will say,
but isn't the issue once again, Mr. Ben, that we're talking about boats, because these are merchants, these are traders. We should be talking about them using a ferry instead of, you know, all these small boats, because they have to use, they have to carry their goods. And we can't blame the river. Waves are natural forces. So isn't it about time that we move away from just providing life jackets to providing bigger boats? I mean, after all, these traders can pay levies, can pay the transportation fares that they need to get their goods from point A to point B, also safeguarding their lives in the process. Are you surprised that we don't have big enough ferries for these commercial, transportations?
You see, by the time you're talking of ferries, ferries will always become almost a government kind of a thing. In other words,
I mean, we have government buses. Doesn't it make sense that we have government ferries?
If we can have luxurious buses, just like the government is talking of these negotiations they've just done, they're bringing in some buses that will be operated with cheaper kind of gas. So why doesn't the government also do the same thing for water transportation? And in doing so, see if we can have private organizations or agencies or individuals having all these luxurious buses on the roads. Why don't we also encourage them? I mean, look, water transportation is lucrative. Let people go into it. But when it is left for the kind of informal sector where some people just go meet some guys, you build a boat for me, and they are already you paddling, making some engines, 2 horsepower to fly the people. I think that it should go beyond all of this. This large population, if we actually know the types of transportation we have in this country, I think we should also make the water transportation look modern.
If we can talk about the diphtheria before we wrap things up, they're talking about a possible reintroduction of face masks across these states, 19, including the FCT, that have this huge rising cases of diphtheria. Kano State remains the epicenter with 7,000 plus cases recorded so far, about 80%, over 80% of the national burden. What do you make of our handling of this diphtheria outbreak that has killed well over 400 plus people?
You see, I had to file a story for where I work now, Deutsche Welle, on this diphtheria when Kano hit over 7,000 mark. I met Dr. Stella Nkozika or something like that, Dr. Ayo Williams, Dr. Well, they said this thing affects mostly children between 2 years and 14. So by the time you now see, let's gag everybody, wear the mask again. Let us, diphtheria is a child killer disease. So by the time you begin to punish the adults, why don't we give these people vaccination? What is hard? What we're going to spend pursuing people over mask and all that, just buy the medication and take care of these children. The 5 killer diseases, child killer diseases, I'm wondering why Nigeria is still always there. And they said globally, again, we are so backward when it comes to this diphtheria. The laboratories are not there, and by the time you bring them in, the medicine now, the storage is poor because no electricity. I mean, keep them, they all expire there, and you can't give children expired medication. So a whole lot of things, government has to come in, and that's why you see medicine with Doctors Without Borders, Medecins Sans Frontières. You also see UNICEF. They all have been crying. Why is it that these foreign agencies are crying more than Nigerians, who they are busy changing laws at the National Assembly that if you are not the ranking senator, you can't contest it. Look at why you are there first. You know, and the Ministry of Health. I mean, let us begin to do what we are supposed to do. If you are a Minister of Health, what is it that you've packaged for Nigerians? Not that we'll just be seeing the end, you begin to say this hype is just caused, this fear is caused by the media.
And you know, to think that we got a pat on the back with our handling of COVID-19, which is far lesser in terms of magnitude with diphtheria, but it apparently is becoming a sort of a national emergency right now.
Affected the very high in society.
Right. Okay.
How many children died of corona?
Children,
how many?
Many family as well. I think
the heart of it is vaccination, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And to think that we have a Minister of Health who was one part of the Gavi Group, an organization that is renowned globally for one of the biggest mobilizers of vaccine. We want to see some of those contacts come into play as far as the Nigerian situation is concerned. That's how much we can take on from the newspapers this morning. I want to thank you very much for finding time to be here.
And thank you for having me too.
Thank you
and
very
to
much,
also
Mr.
compliment your outlook this morning.
Thank you.
You feel
It's
like
an
you want
old
to
one.
return to service again.
It's an old one.
Well, it doesn't matter. It does look. It does look sweet on you,
okay,
so to speak.
You may need to keep smiling on
sort
the
of
street.
takes away another 10 years away from your age. Feel like. All right, and to our viewers at home, we want to thank you for finding time to be part of this episode of the program, or rather, this part of today's Daybreak show. And I hope that we have brought you satisfaction as far as the quality of our programming is concerned, and we'll promise on our honor to continue to deliver the best, only the best, to you at home.